Hi folks, so I'm just weighed anchor. I'm on my way to Grand Motte, and I'm in Roses, Spain. Solo sail, as the title suggests. So I thought I'd bring you along for the ride. If the internet drops out, then the internet drops out. But thought you guys might enjoy it. So I've been shooting a little bit of footage as well this morning. We're underway at the moment. I've been shooting a little bit of footage this morning, so I'll try and make a movie of that. A little bit less wind than I expected. I'll talk to you as if you're here. So as my desktop on my navigation screen, this orange box, which I love, it's I've just got the sail plan and the limits, or not the limits, but the best sail plan for each condition of wind angle. So that's what that's for. That's my desktop. And I'm just opening up OpenCPN. Still running with my Vespa Cortex here. Yeah, so it's good. There we are. See, Roses. This is the Bay of Roses. Going up around here. And this is my destination is only I know it's about 70, it's nearly 80 miles. Yeah, so 73 miles as a crow flies. Pretty calm. It's a lot calmer than I was expecting. I was expecting more wind this morning. Doesn't matter either way. I'm sure it'll pick up later. So I'm using this Vespa Cortex. You can see the instrument display here on the screen of that. I can switch between VHF. It's impressive. So I leave it like this. So when I'm sailing, so I've got a spare pair of instruments if that should fail. If there's any issues, my autopilot, my heading. I've got the autopilot on heading hold at the moment. So this is the NKE instrument. So you can see I've got it on 112 magnetic. No, true actually. And yeah, so I'm just gonna use the autopilot, just keeping aware of myself, and then just getting everything going. So I've got the VHF muted at the moment. Let's see. So this gives me collision avoidance as well. VHF can be a bit distracting. I'm not offshore. Not that I only use the VHF offshore, but I've got good AIS, good visibility, so just it'd be quite distracting the VHF constantly running all the time. So I'm going to see. Hi, the three of you. Alcubas, how you doing? So I'm solo sailing, and you guys wrote me some messages and keep me company on the ride. I'm on the laptop, so I'm gonna bring the laptop around with me, and I'm just gonna be working away. I'm on my own, so I'm just gonna work around getting everything else. I'm expecting it's only light winds at the moment, so I'm under motor, but I'm on my way to Grand Motte in France. It's about 70 miles, but I'll actually end up doing about 90. And it's just me and the dog. Boat's a bit messy, but I've deliberately left some things around, like my dive stuff, just in case I need to get quick access to it in an emergency, should I catch something in my prop or whatever. So just have a coffee here. I may get some phone calls and stuff throughout my day, but anyway, leave it at that now. This is one of those Sonos speakers. And then over here, I've got my energy management. So you can see at the moment, I'm consuming about 20 amps at 24 volts at rest with no input. So at the moment, I'm putting 52 amps, which is about 1400 watts, into the battery. But I'm also consuming 20 amps. So 20 times 24 is how many watts it is. It's my 24 volt. This is 24 volt ship. So, just motoring along. Scooch up around the coast, and hopefully the wind will pick up. Where's the doggo? She's under the table here. Let me show you. There she is. It's one of our hiding spots. And I'll show you just leaving the Bay of Roses here. As you can see, it's pretty flat seas. That's the town of Roses. Well, just around that corner, that way. It's the town of Roses, great anchorage, great place for a dinghy by the sailing club. But unbelievably, some people try and charge you for tying up a dinghy on a dock, rather than having the foresight to see that it actually benefits them if you bring custom to the to their shops or whatever. But yeah, it's kind of weird. Anyway, so I've got actually some people try to charge me like 20 bucks or whatever just to use the dock. Yeah, I'm moving at the moment. Underway. You can see that over here. So I'm gonna speak to you like your new novice crew, all of you. So this is my wind readout here, this bar here. Then this is my kind of wind rose, and you can see I'm doing about speed over ground without the water. I'm doing 5 knots, but speed through the water at 6 knots. So I'm at 1800 revs in both engines. Hull's quite dirty actually. Couldn't be bothered, if I'm honest, to get. I got my wetsuit on before I left, a few months back in France, but I need to get down there and do a little bit of scraping of the hull, clean up the hull a little bit. And it makes a big difference for these fast boats if you keep the bum of the boat really clean. And it's a worthwhile investment. You save fuel, and obviously you go faster, which is fun. And so yeah, you can see what I've got here. So I'll finish up. This is my radar, specific radar screen, and I can have an overlay on top of my chart. There's my rose. The wind's just starting to pick up a little bit. It's only 3 knots of wind, so that's why I'm under motor. Yeah, I actually only exclusively run the ship off open source, which is OpenCPN software. I'm running this at the moment off an M1, I think, or M2 MacBook Pro with a Max chip in it. I think they're good value for money, particularly the Mac Mini at the moment. But the problem is, if you're using Mac on a boat, that some of the software, like this NKE, they've written their software for Windows, so you find that, right? A lot of legacy stuff is Windows only. And yes, you can use virtualization, or there's all sorts of stuff you can do now, or wizardry where you can do Docker containers and stuff. But when it comes to networking, I'm not good enough. It's just a lot less hassle to have a Windows specific machine like that. So I use this. This is basically, it would at the time it was the competitor to the, it moved so fast, but that was the competitor to the M1 or M2 chip from Mac. But obviously it's Windows. But if I had a choice, I'd turn that Linux, Kubers. But under here, I have a lot less powerful. But this little mealy here. See that little? That runs Linux Fedora. Yeah, there's no question, just simply no question. Linux, my preference is Fedora as a distribution. The Linux is far better because it's stable. And the best thing is, like last night, I booted up an old laptop that I put Linux on it. Just said update everything. Just left it for 20 minutes and everything's updated. I didn't have to touch anything. Didn't even have to do a reboot. So yeah, Linux, especially on a boat or ship, it's definitely the way to go. We've got the fishing line out. See if we can get a lot of tuna around here. Naughty. We can get a sneaky tuna. And you can see on my navigation screen here, I've got the red and the green lines. Those are what you call the ley lines. So if we were sailing, the red one would be, I'm on port tack at the moment, and then the green one would be, considering where I've got the dagger boards down, it does this calculation live, so it tells me where I'd be on the other tack. So if you're going upwind, it's really helpful. Well, it's helpful all the time, but it shows you what direction you're going to be with the wind direction on the other tack. Helps with tactics, kind of cheating a little bit if you were racing. Helpful. So I've got a beautiful view. I'm going to take the laptop up. Obviously, I'm going to put the laptop. That's my view out the deck. Got the sin bin, I call it, with all my grub in it, all the sugary food. Sometimes, especially in bad weather, you feel like you're a little bit hungover, I guess. It's the food, all the food that you eat when you're hungover is the food that you like at sea, but it's super calm here today. There we go. Lovely. So yeah, one of the other things you'd want to be doing as soon as I can. How am I connected to the internet? Connected with Starlink. Got Starlink on the roof. I got the maritime dish, and the subscription is when you're on the close to the land or whatever. It's the same as normal. It uses a bit more power than maritime dish actually, but the other one, the older one that I had, it died. What I noticed is the latency is less on this dish, I think, and also the bandwidth is I'd say about 25% better with this one. That's what I've kind of experienced in the same location. So yeah, I think it's a worthwhile investment if you need it for things like this. And you can see that there's no dropouts at the moment, I don't think. Too bad in Europe because the charts are pretty good, but I've seen in places like Panama. But since I go across the Atlantic, I'd be sailing slightly different strategy than I am doing now. I wouldn't be sailing this close to the land and chopping across that point or punta here in Spain because you're relying on the charts being very good. They are as well. These waters are very well charted, obviously. You would hope so anyway. But when you start getting further afield, I've seen some pretty bad sailing. Like even I remember in I think it was USVI. I was on the foredeck on sailing, and I saw some rocks which were quite charted. So that was US water and in the United States, obviously the NOAA is very good. I think that's who's responsible for charting waters. So, it happens, right? Just miss some rocks. So generally, I try and stay 2 miles offshore. Yeah. So you can see in full effect here that the OpenCPN just takes a little bit of hacking. So the radar, I haven't got the radar switched. I've got it powered on, but I'm not using it. And once you get the RJ45 from this particular Halo 24 radar, once you do a little bit of hardware hacking, it's not really that difficult, to be honest. Put it into a Wi-Fi 6 router, and then that goes from the Wi-Fi 6 router, take a cable, go from that to the back of that orange box. And then you must get the NMEA data into that orange box as well, which I do through USB from this guy. Once I do that, you're populating a lot of all of this, and once you've used this open source software, it's very hard to go back to a chart plotter. Everybody has their own preference, but if you're setting out going sailing, I definitely, my advice to you is to start with this. I see a lot of people still, in my opinion, making the mistake of using chart plotters. You just don't really need one. If you're in close to port, I can use your phone. Navionics is okay in Europe or maybe inshore stuff or familiar territories, but like I said, if I crossed the Atlantic, I definitely wouldn't be relying on. I might be using it, but I wouldn't be relying on it. It's a little bit like when I was studying as a doctor. You use as many sources of material as you can find to form your opinion on something, and that's the same with navigational charts. Where there are reefs forming all the time, you'll be using sat pictures, and you can overlay satellite on top of your chart like that. Especially with this, it's really easy. Whereas you can't do that with a chart plotter. So my girlfriend's just messaged me; she's awake. And I'll try as best as I can to do a log. Generally, do it about every hour. You should really do it if you can. The other thing is this watch can take a GPS fix and do a breadcrumb when you have it in expedition mode. It's a Garmin Phonex. That's how my girlfriend's looking to get on the live stream. This will be fun. Let's see, what have we got here? Kubez, we got, is that a gaming chair? It is, in fact, a gaming chair. There's my girlfriend. Everybody say hello. It's Jessie there. Morning. And yeah, so yeah, this is a gaming chair. It's does the job and really comfortable. They're based off a car. Hi, morning. It says behold films. Yeah, I just It's comfortable, does the job. I changed the coasters so that it doesn't roll around everywhere. I had rolly coasters, which are better for a gaming chair in an office, but I just changed the base of it. So for the benefit of my girlfriend who's just logged in, I'm running off Wi-Fi 6, and then so I'm just leaving at the moment, just leaving this bay behind me. So around that point, I was anchored, and she knows because she was with me. And yeah, so this is my view this morning. Spectacular. Just motoring into the sunset. I'm motoring at the moment because I've got no wind, but I've got all the lines are ready at my feet here to begin working. And then I've already got the fishing line out as well. Got the fishing line out, and having my coffee. It's working. Coffee's working. I've had about 4 million already. So I'm on my way to Grand Motte. Well, actually, I'm probably going to go to Sète in France. I'm going to Sète because I'm expecting very high winds tomorrow evening. So we're not quite sure what's going on. So those of you that are more experienced sailors will know that mooring up a boat is probably the hardest thing in sailing. So I think everybody knows that land don't work very well. They're great on the water, but not great with land. So, you know, mooring up a boat is generally the hardest thing. And this is she's very wide, and because she's 57 foot, you know, there's always some compromise you make. Like you can set up cameras, and I have done for mooring up. Get a bit more experience. It's lovely and less stressful to have an extra pair of hands, especially when you're tired and coming into port after the sail. So putting out fenders, putting out lines, all that sort of stuff. So my plan is, for the boat show, he's become my friend through this whole process. Benjamin Hovet is I think he's the chief tech officer for service aspect of ORC in Marston Composites, which has been taken over by Grand Large Yachting. And I'm going to do a flyby the dock. He's going to jump on. We're not even probably going to tie up the lines, or I could drop the anchor, go pick him up in the dinghy. Just do a flyby in the dock. Take Benjamin, who's, to be honest, Benjamin, I think, is he's a better sailor than me, probably. In fact, certainly. He's a fantastic sailor. So between the pair of us, we should be able to moor up the boat. And what I know already is where I'm going for the boat show is a very, very tight and shallow space. And why the shallow is relevant, obviously you don't want to drown the boat, but what I do is I use the dagger boards to stop that leeway drift and help give you maneuverability. Otherwise, this boat is 57 foot and it's 11.5 tons, so it's like a balloon in the wind. Very, very tricky in confined space. You prefer to just keep a bit of momentum. And as a general rule, you'll have your ass into the wind, gives you more maneuverability. There's not so much control over what way the bow goes. You can control with the two engines your ass. So yeah, just backing that into the position and apparently they want me in first at the boat show, so I've come a few days early. Suits me well because there's bad weather coming. So Jesse's asking me something. Are you moving right now? I am. Yeah, you can see on this chart here. This is me moving along the track. You can track that's where I've come from, and I'm going around, and I'll show you. If I zoom out, I'm going all the way up over here. So I'm crossing this massive bight, basically the bay. So I'm in Spain at the moment, going to France. And I'm expecting the wind to kind of come from the southerly direction. So it's pretty easy sailing for me. I wouldn't, if I had crew and I was pushing on, we'd have it's kind of a very relaxed downwind sail. And yeah, so it's all very relaxed stuff. So that's why I've got the live stream going, so that I look like I'm a better sailor than I am. It's pretty easy. We've got a few sails at the front, Jesse. And then I've got the big mainsail up above my head here. And I'd say if the wind is right behind me, I might just take it easy and open just the front sail and then just run with the wind. So it makes it really easy for me. What I can do, which is faster and more efficient, is to come off the wind and have the wind coming up on a slight angle to my tail and put up the mainsail. If I have the mainsail up, I'm going to do that. Even though I add more miles to my destination, I get there much faster, and that's another option. But even if I just run with it today, I should hopefully get into France and close to the shore within daylight hours. I'm hoping, certainly by now that I've left early, about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Any questions? Let's see. Kubez, yes, I am close to. I'm not going to pronounce that one, but I remember seeing it on the chart. I'm going to be passing there, I think. Thanks, Mrs. Jones. Easy sailing, thank you. Yeah, it's easy sailing, downwind sailing. Bit boring for me, to be honest. And I've missed my close friend Bobby, who is also permanent crew for a while there. He's gone off to. Bobby's in priority. He's a farmer, an arable crop farmer, and he's a very good one. So he's got his harvest that he does in the summertime, and his girlfriend, who you guys, if you watch my channel, you would have met, Corinne, a very beautiful Corinne, and so Corinne's from the United States, and so he's over there in the US, seeing Corinne and doing various bits and pieces, and then so I'm on my own. So my friend Bobby, I think Bobby's a very, very bright young brother, and I prefer to see him, exploiting his great mind rather than his strong physique. Bob's 24, so I miss my friend, but when the pair of us are together, we really get this ship hooning along, absolutely screaming. Got some great stories. And that's the thing about this boat, I'd say, in comparison to the Carry On, which was a Neil 51. This is an ORC 57, very significantly bigger. Although the space, in interior spaces, there's a different setup. I wouldn't say it's less, it's just appears, the saloon appears smaller. But the working area is significantly more on this boat for obvious reasons. You're doing sail changes and stuff like that. But for example, when I showed Jessie, who's hopefully still watching, my girlfriend, the videos of Carry On, she's like, I like that boat. Why can't we have that one? And I explained to her that that's not the boat that I think really makes sense. This is the reason I commissioned this vessel, is because she's got much better performance, and we're less dependent on the motor. So it takes a lot of husband and wife couples will move towards a boat that's a house rather than it should be a boat first. And why that's important is basically it's safer, and also your husband will be miserable because they'll be fixing things all the time. But this boat is designed with, I made sure that this was very easy to maintain, because I know that a boat is a boat. It's not a house. Although you can have all the flashy furniture and stuff, that adds weight and adds maintenance and problems. So, Jessica, whenever she saw the videos on my channel of Carry On, she really liked it. And it's ridiculous. Carry On actually had 6 cabins, but they were quite disparate. All the cabins are in different places and spaces that you don't really use that much, to be honest, for if it was me on my own or if Jessica joined me. With this, I've got the port side is completely dedicated to myself and Jessica, and then my friends, there's 2 cabins on the starboard side here. And the other thing is the VIP cabin and my cabin, the bed is 2 by 2 meters, which is sensational. It's perfectly square, so you can sleep at any point of sail, which means it's always nice to have your feet to the waves. Just keeping an eye out here. So yeah, just keeping your feet to the waves is nice. But also when you're under anchor in port, it's lovely. I'd say the comfort of both is pretty much the same. There are different sailing characteristics. I would say this is much more of a sailor's boat. This you get what you put in, you get out what you put in. You could, apart from under motor at the moment, obviously, but our baseline speed on this boat is normally around about 10 knots, whereas you're always trying to get 10 knots and carry on. But the top speed of this vessel is, so far I've done like 21, 22 average speed. You're doing that for many, many hours, but you have to be on the winches, right? It's fast. Whereas, I think 11 knots is you're starting to get a little bit close to the limits of carry on. But realistically, you're talking about 10 average speed and a 20 knot wind. So under the same conditions, you're doing more than, so you can hear that I'm getting a collision alert here, but so there's nothing there. Sorry, I'm sailing here at the same time. Yeah, so it's just warning me about these small vessels here and on the screen. I don't know if you can see them up here, these small vessels. But yeah, so we're effectively getting on the similar point of sail like double the speed on Apocalypse, but that's not the true story really, because where you really see this vessel shine is upwind and in light winds. In light winds especially, we're actually sailing faster than the wind, and we've actually at one point got 3 knots faster than the true wind, at around between 6 and 8 knots of true wind. The best when carry on was new and clean, I'd maybe match 6 knots of wind speed, maybe. But of course, I think what's really impressive for me, this was more about tacking and driving. The rudders are quite big, and you've got 2 of them on this, so you can take your time going through a jibe or a tack, and the boat will tack and jibe very easily. That's the most important thing. So for me, like, although kind of being a bit silly at the moment because I've got my engines running, I could be scootering along, at 3 knots of sailing speed without using the engines. But this boat, you're going back to the old ways. In fact, obviously the technology is better than the old ways, but on this vessel, she's true expedition in my opinion. I don't want to go and get iced in somewhere, but everywhere else, for 95% of the world's seas, I would much prefer to have this vessel as sailing, because I know that if one of my engine fails, I've got the other engine, but that's not really that relevant. Everybody asks me that about redundancy of engines. Sure, it's nice, but it's more about the sailing performance. It's sensational sailing performance of this vessel. And I think what also is sensational about it is the maintainability of it. Everything is easy access and maintainability. That really reduces your stress. So explaining that to my partner, until you live this life, you don't appreciate that's luxury to me. To the naked eye, or to someone that's not experienced in sailing, they would see, this white is probably quite clinical. This just bare surfaces, but that's actually what you want. Let's see. So I'll read some questions here. Let's see. Oh yeah, absolutely. The beautiful thing. So I just read a point from Mrs. Jones but we were all different people with other habits. Absolutely. I think totally, and I totally get it. I think if I was older, I think this would be too much for me, this boat, like hoisting sails. And if I wasn't, I love to keep fit, and I'm more that kind of, that's my lifestyle. I like to work out. In fact, I feel weird if I don't work out during the week, every day. But I think if you were used to living a more sedentary lifestyle, I think you'd basically want something more like carry on, where there's just 3 winches and they're right in front of you, and that's it. Whereas I have 8 winches on this boat, and the loads are much, much higher on this vessel. There is no line or rope on this vessel that it isn't Dyneema, for good reason. And whereas carry on, you could easily get away with not bothering Dyneema. The main sheets were Dyneema, apart from carry on, that was it. But I totally agree. But my point is, if there wasn't a vessel like this, a cat in the catamaran class, what else would there be? There would be nothing. There is nothing. That's even close, in my opinion. I think you've got gunboats, but gunboats, you need a crew, and there's a significantly bigger vessel and actually much more expensive. Lovely. But for what I'm doing right now, I think it's silly taking a gunboat 68. Whereas this is the limit, I think. You know, this ORC 57, it's the limit for doing what I'm doing. And obviously, it would be wonderful if I had Jessica here with me right now, but I think this is the limit for a two-man team, and to get those kind of the crazy speeds that we're getting. You know, it's the other thing is that you know, if your boat can do 21 knots, doing 16, it's a little bit like, how do I say it? You get into a sports car, and that sports car, you know that it can do 200 mile an hour. Doing 150 mile an hour is, I mean, 130 mile an hour. Sure, it's fast, but it's not like, ooh. But the same I'd say with motorbikes. Superbikes are more my thing. So you can, the limits, the more relaxed aspect of fast sailing starts to get a bit easier. You're pushing boundaries where, so if you get in a boat that, you know, isn't designed for that, it's like you have this constant feeling of like, oh, am I going to break something? Whereas this, you're not going to break anything. You're not going to break the boat. And what's going to happen, you know, you've got to be careful, obviously, with that power, just like a superbike or a supercar. You know, if you put too much power in a cornice, you're going to spin it out and go, you know, break the car and yourself. Same here. But if there wasn't this brand, ORC, there isn't anything else, in my opinion. There just isn't. You have to go about building a custom boat. And even when you build a custom boat, you have to make sure that you can do a better job than the Mark Lombard design group who designed this, and also the team in Lorient, who are all fanatical sailors. In fact, I'd say the majority of the design team basically are working so that they can afford something to go sailing again. So very much the same as like when I was racing motorbikes. You know, that everybody's just trying to get enough money to go out racing again. And it's I wouldn't say it's a hobby; it's an addiction. I've got to say, for me, it's more. Although yes, now I feel like I'm a sailor. I don't really see myself much as a sailor. I just haven't found a better way to see the world than on a sailing vessel for, you know, adventuring, exploring the world. You know, I found when I was on land, I was quite often always looking to find fresh water, be it in a camper van or you know, on a motorbike. I found that quite frustrating after a while when I wanted to go further afield. But on this, I can just use solar energy or the batteries to desalinate water. So, okay. So Paul, hi Paul, love this thing. Thanks. Yeah, I was talking. So, Kubez, you're talking about faster than the wind. Yeah, it's pretty insane, and that's with the working sail. So, with this vessel, we're in the lighter winds. I haven't really recorded it too much, but with the working sails and all sail up, obviously, and the J1, which is your solent rig, you're generally expecting on this boat to get 1.5 knots more than the true wind speed, sometimes 2. But as soon as I put up the 180 meter squared code 0, it's just a consistent 2 knots over the wind speed, sometimes 3. And I'd say when the conditions are right and it's responsible, the code 0 is very good fun. And if you were going to put your money in on a boat like Carry On, I remember Carry On's not as good upwind as this would be, but I would say code 0s are quite nice and easy to handle. And when you have a furling system on them as well, they're from the bottom up furling. They furl that way, whereas, you know, some of the asymmetric spinnakers, if you put them on a furling system, furl from top down. Not good. My experience with those, I don't like them. Especially if you're doing what I'm doing now. You have a problem, it's not relaxing. So let's see. 6 knots on what degrees upwind and carry on. We bought the Neil 47 will sail also a lot, so I know you look like the entrance of the armors. No, I do like, oh, the entrance of the armors from the saloon to outside. Yeah, so Mrs. Jones is saying, got 2 questions there, I think. 6 knots on what degrees upwind and carry on? 6 knots on what degrees? Can you smash that question out again for me, Mrs. Jones? I'm not sure that I understand that one. And then you bought the Neil 47 and will sail also. So, yeah, I don't. For kids, I don't like that fact that you got to go outside the saloon and into to get into the armor cabins. But I mean, if you don't have kids or the kids are more grown up, fine, it's not a problem. Just clip in as well. Yeah. So there's a guy that's fishing close to me, keeps setting me off, and then I agree what you tell. Okay, so 6 knots. So, but for the upwind sailing, I think on the Neils in general, I think you'd be quite for apparent wind angles. I think you'd be pretty good, or the sails would be quite new and the boat quite light. You're getting around 45 or 40 degrees apparent. Now, a comparable but not the similar, a comparable boat that you can buy, like the lagoons of this world. I've asked my friends that own lagoons, they're getting about 60 apparent. In reality, 60 degrees apparent. And what that means is with 60 going upwind at 60 degrees apparent, it's terrorizing. You're tacking loads and you're getting nowhere. So what you'll generally do in a lagoon type boat is you'll switch on the motors and go directly upwind. And then when you do, because the low bridge deck, you get this slamming on the waves because the low bridge deck. The Neil is great because for the space, and I still think Carry On is a great boat, and I think the Neil is a great choice because it's more upwind sailing. It's great, and 40 degrees apparent is acceptable and it's good. Like, I mean, a centerboard boat monohull will probably be, if you look and research it, like the expedition vessels, and they're probably around the same, 40 degrees apparent upwind. So that means, so when you're tacking, you're getting 40 apparent all the time, and that's pretty good. That's acceptable. I think you will eventually get there. It's a little bit frustrating, but you'll eventually get there. If I was to say to you, this vessel is 20 apparent, but the sweet spot is around about between 23 and 25 degrees, and 23 being, you see how accurate it is. It's literally like a surgeon's scalpel, the autopilot. It's so accurate. That's transformational. You're effectively halving the amount of tacks that you need to do in order to get upwind to your destination. So tend to port here. Let's see. Yeah, Marco, hi, welcome. I'm not running with any sail at the moment. I was expecting more wind, but the wind's picking up a little bit. So I've been talking a lot, but I've got 9 knots now. So you can see I'm dead downwind. So I'm just going to go and open the J1 and just run with that for a bit and see how we get on. Switch off the engines. I've had the engines running for a bit too long on this boat. Don't really like running the engines at all. So just going to go and do that. I'll bring you along for the ride. So excuse me. It's a working boat, guys, as well. So it's not at a boat show. So you forgive me the dog hair and all that sort of stuff. I'm just going to show you how I do that. So you'll see a big primary winch here, furling line here. I'm on starboard tack, so just open up the sails. I've got 10 knots of wind now, so. Yeah, let's see. So I'm bringing it back in. So I just got the J1. I'll show you that. It's got just running with the J1 at the moment. Let's let these engines cool down for a bit. It's got a turbo, so let's let the engine cool down for a little bit, and then I'll switch the engine off and just chill out and chat to you. You guys can keep me company. Let's see. Now, I can obviously put up the mainsail and then, jibe and get there. I would get there a lot more quickly, but this is just being really lazy, if I'm totally honest. So what generally in these very fast boats is, I would always be trying to keep the apparent wind at like in between 120 and 20 degrees. So up in that region is your sweet spot generally. You'd be better off to turn up into the wind. And like I keep saying, adding more miles. It's obviously pretty dependent on where your destination is, but generally as a rule of thumb, it'd make more sense. I'm expecting the wind to pick up later. That's what the weather reports say, but weather report never does what it says it's going to do. Let's see, and yeah, let's see. So my Marco. So I'm not sure. Does that answer your question, Marco? It's going to pick up later, and then the really cool thing is, I can do this right now. I can chat to you guys because there's no wind. It's very chilled, right? I'm just running with the J1, so that's the solid. Just being super boring sailing for me, to be honest. But I know later on there's going to be a westerly wind coming from France going offshore, and that means I'll get beam winds, and that'll be quite a bit later. And that's, as everybody that is into sailing knows, that the beam seas on the side, on your side, that's sexy, especially in a boat like this. So you start hooning along, and what I know is it's going to keep gradually building and building and building. So it'll start off 15, 20, 25, and then might even hit 30. So with 30 knots of true wind, I'm going to have to do a sail change on the front. So these numbers are pretty silly, pretty insane, because the J1 or the solid rig that I have at the moment, my sail plan kind of goes, so at 28 apparent, I put one reef in the main, and then, 28, and then 31, I still leave the J1 up all this time. So the limits, when I get to 31 apparent or more, I generally should be closing the J1. I'll have to, in a stay in the triangle, put up the J2, and then hoist the J2, get that up. And so you generally try and balance the rig. So you've got the J2 with 2 reefs in the main, and then you'd be going J3, 3 reefs in the main. And then that takes you right up to, more than gale force winds. It's 55 knots apparent wind. Why these numbers sound, like crazy lottery numbers, and they are. But because it's such a fast boat, we make so much wind, right? So all the materials are much heavier. The design for that's not like your average cruising boat. So we need much heavier material, and people don't get that. So things like running cars have to be built to withstand the heavier, bigger forces. Packing away a mainsail, for example, when you go to, I've seen, I think it's the winds, for example. are frustrated that their mainsail doesn't just drop that easily. And I agree, it's frustrating. You need to keep on top of your running cars, but the sail material, the carbon type, or these laminate sails, then they're not as bendy, right? They're not as flexible. So there's a bit of resistance to the cars to keeping them up. So, it's not really the running cars, it's not the issue. It's the sail itself doesn't want to fall as easy. So that to inexperienced guys with the racing dudes, could be a little bit scary, trying to put in a reef and the mainsail, she wants to stay up in the high winds. That can be all, pretty stressful, so that I'm not saying that's the reason on their boat, but I'd say it probably is. It could be on the boat that they've had a lot of problems on their HH. A lot of people are doing it as well, guys. You'll notice that at the moment I have 2 diesel engines from Yanmar, and if you're going to do a diesel engine, I definitely put, as I have, Yanmar at my #1 spot. There's a simple thing that nobody really seems to appreciate and understand, which is that maybe they do understand it, it's just life choices, but the energy density of diesel is still better than the batteries that you can buy, or mere mortals like you and me can buy. So if you're going to do what I do, which is offshore boat work, for 2 reasons, I definitely wouldn't be that keen on electric propulsion. And also most of these electric propulsion folks are using a diesel engine in the form of a generator to generate more energy for the electric propulsion. So I'm yet to be convinced, that electric propulsion is there. I get the point, regen, all of that, but for me, I'm all about let's call it. I see boats a little bit like one of these, which is, for me, sure, I'm a sailor, but if there was another way to do what I do, I would do it in something else. If there was a spaceship, I'd do it in a spaceship. But this boat to me is a little bit like a multi-tool, and one of these. This is a very good one from Leatherman. It's called an Arc, if you're interested. But I see this boat as the ultimate multi-tool. I depend on this. I don't think, if I'm using this someday and I'm chopping wire, I don't expect this to break on me. And I do a little bit of maintenance in the fact that I give it oil and I do a little bit of work on it. But anything that happens to that, I definitely hope I can fix it. But if you started adding batteries to that, for example, now you're starting to not be that dependable, and it's electric and we're in the water. I'm not sure, do you get my point? It's like you're adding a layer of risk, and I'm generally about reducing risk when I do offshore sail work. Technically I'm going offshore now, and I just don't think and I really respect people of their pioneering efforts, because in the future it'll get there maybe for me, but I'm just not really there. I don't have the confidence in it, and I know, everybody's, the Elon Musk with the Tesla on the land, and I get it. But for most of your energy needs, most of them, the solar panels, particularly the glass panels, will do the job. If I could have exclusively glass panels on this boat, I would do it. I see boats that could have glass panels on the roof and they don't do it. That's silly. Don't try to avoid the walk-on bendy panels. If I had the option, I would completely have glass, because it's way more efficient and way more productive. So that's what I'd say about that. But for energy generation, and heat as well. If you want to have a hot shower, the best way to make heat is from burning something. It's not from it's very inefficient. Like the thing that basically rapes the batteries in the inverter on this boat is if I put the kettle on. So we got a new customer here. Passenger ship. There we go. So we're pootering along here downwind. Okay. So let's see. I thanks for your time. Is there anything you would change on the boat if you were to build it again? Hi, Dominic. Give me a second to think about that one. I'll give you an honest answer. I'm going to think about that one. That's tricky because I've only myself to blame because I selected everything on it. It's a good question. Like always, I would save myself time and hassle, like, you know, with some little tweaks and things. Yeah, the original solar that I installed on the roof. Guys, when you're buying solar, be careful. Test it, and how you test it is don't just put a voltmeter across it in the sun. It'll produce a voltage. It's put a resistance on it and then test it. So shunt, you need to do that because these guys, people are churning out solar, and whether it's the failure rate of the solar when they're manufacturing it or whatever, I don't know. But I wasn't happy with the one on the roof and the one on the dev. It's two different companies. Solar I've just changed it. I spent ages refitting that side of things. Let's see. Yeah, you know what I would actually kind of wrecking my head at the moment is my friend who's become a really close friend, Damien, who was the managing director at the time of Marcellin Composites. Thought because he's a very bright guy and good at procurement, he thought it was a good idea to not have too much dependence on one supplier, and that is a good idea. However, that's kind of slightly disadvantaged me in the shape of we have MG batteries, and on my vessel, I selected Whisper power systems for everything else. I would have preferred probably just to have Whisper batteries because that's given me more commissioning issues. They don't speak very well. So if you were going to go and build a boat or even a caravan or anything of that nature, I'm super impressed with Whisper. They're very good. Again, 95% of the stuff's perfect. There's just some little things I would tell them if I had the engineer guy with me, tell them I would like something. But these guys are smart. So I can admin the shore power chargers to tell them how much current I want to, you know, I basically I can change the charge cycle. I could do most of the maintenance myself. They've used a very dependable Kubota engine in the generator itself. Great, dependable. They've also been quite smart in the fact that they turned down the RPM to be a little bit more chilled out, so it's dependable rather than raping the engine. To be honest, like we would have done on the super bikes and the 4-cylinder bike that I like, just, you know, rev the hell out of it, you know, beyond its limits, you know, rinse it. Whereas obviously on an offshore boat, you want to reduce risk a little bit, like what I'm saying with the electric engine. You want to reduce the risk, so chill out a little bit and get more longevity and dependency out of the engine. So that's what I'd say about that. So I would just get the Whisper batteries as well as instead of the MG that I have here. Now, if you use MG and you have Victron stuff, like the Victron shore power chargers, and you go down that route, they speak really well together. And that's fine. They work quite well together. You could do that. You could use the Victron batteries. But, you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. But that's one thing I would change. Let's see what else. I have to think about it. I wouldn't change anything about what I would call the core critical systems. So anything on DC, it's perfect. Perfection, really. And so the NKE instruments, like on my old boat, I honestly, I'm not joking. I'm not trying to be macho anyway, but I felt like crying sometimes with frustration from B&G. Just unbelievable, driving me nuts. And my friend Matthias, who was on the similar vessel, the identical vessel, and made from the identical yard and identical subcontractor, doing the electronics. Like, I mean, Matthias is, and his wife Betty, like, I mean, they're like the smartest couple I've ever met. Matthias is he is a physicist. He's one of those guys that it would actually embarrass a university professor with his intellect. Do you know what I mean? In that specialist field, the guy's insanely bright, and so therefore electronics. You know, the guy's so smart that he actually creates his own way of dealing with anti-lightning and protecting the system, which is inherently flawed on his old vessel. That's how bright the guy is. He just go and make his own chips and stuff. He works with microchips and insane. And he was frustrated with the fact that he couldn't really do much about it. So we got up to 17 true here now, and I'm just going to plot my log. It's 9 a.m. Switch off those engines. So if I get cut off, folks, I'll just end the live stream. There's no point, you know, if the system's really bad. Fishing vessels out today. Just got to be careful of all these guys. So 17 knots true wind speed, which is great for the point of sail I'm on. Good, can still chat to you. Yeah, what have we got here? Let's see. Hi, Jesse. Do you ever want to have a house when? I carry on. Yes. So my girlfriend is asking, do I ever want to live on land? Looking to see if I find the right person, you know. If I find the right person that can convince me to live on land, I might think about it. But she'd have to try really hard. Breakfast in bed every morning, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So answering, rather than get into a romantic dialogue on a live stream, I think. Let's see. So Al Kubez is asking, but does Yanmar not require to be installed by a qualified engineer? Yeah, you would be wise to install a Yanmar. If you're not installing by a qualified engineer, you want to. It's all about warranty, and the point is Yanmar. I think it's a 6-year warranty. If you get a Yanmar engineer to service your engines, they'll give you a 6-year warranty. I'll let that sink in for a boat. So if you do the service time intervals and you upload them on their portal on the web, that's done properly. They feel so confident about there. And for me, when I was in Rome, my mum lives in Rome, and I sailed into Rome. I got a Rome Yanmar serviceman, and they called him. Everybody was calling him Master Magono. I was like, what's everybody calling this? What's his first name, Master? But actually, he has a master certificate from Yanmar, and that's credited by other engineers that are not even Yanmar agents, because he's a master level Yanmar engineer. And it shows, because literally I went down and I was watching him. Just, you'd be wise to keep an eye on engineers on your boat. And I was watching the guy servicing my engines, and he literally did it just like in an operating theater. He got the the plastic and covered the engine and put the tape around the area that he's working on, so that any splashes or anything didn't go on the walls, or he was just totally focused on this area. Let that sink in. So literally, it was like in operating theatre. He took it that personally. I've obviously taken his number, and we'll keep in contact. And if I had an option, I would prefer him to service my engines. And he actually replaced some notice a very, very small pinhole leak on the top of my heat exchanger. There's a cap for the heat exchanger. So there's a tiny bit of coolant. Just replace that under warranty. Let's see. So, Dominic, I'm not sure if you're still there, if that answers your question. Yeah, I'll show you this. This is quite helpful. If you see what's on the dial of my VHF, I'm also getting some instruments. Quite handy when you just walk in. My apparent wind at the moment, as you can see, is 12. So. Sneaky question from my girlfriend there. I'm chuckling to myself. Be careful of that, guys. Any sailors out there, be careful of a beautiful woman trying to snare you and get you back on land. Anyway, I'll take you guys out so you can see. I'm just going to sort out some of my stuff. Leave you guys with this backdrop. Look at that. Outstanding. So this is a large part of sailing. If you don't know, everything goes from totally relaxing, chill to like 1,000 miles an hour very quickly. So everything is going well. It's plain sailing, as they say. But when it goes wrong quite badly. So, 90% of sailing is done in port. Planning is everything. And, if you step on a friend's boat or whatever, and, they start having engine problems before you even leave the dock, you know that they haven't done the homework. You need to, it's really important. It's really important. Now, in a few minutes, I'm going to start putting on my life jacket. You might be wondering why I've got one on, but, running around, they're quite restrictive and heavy, and I've actually got a bad neck as well, so they can be quite tiring having one on. But I'm starting to get offshore now. And then the other thing is, I'm going to show it to you. This is quite cool, this instrument. So this is my autopilot, and it's an autopilot remote. And what happens is, if I get too far from the vessel, what should happen is that the autopilot disengages and turns the boat. Well, turns the boat into the wind. So, I mean, I have a fighting chance of getting back to the vessel because your chances are not good. Swimming, I'm already, I maybe could swim to that shore, maybe, but the dog wouldn't be. She'd probably want to join me. But yeah, I wouldn't. It's, let's say 50-50. But if you're genuinely offshore, not great your chances. And if you bang your head as you're falling or something like that happens, it's curtains. So the other thing is I have here, which is this. This guy. So I put that in my pocket. Hopefully when I fall in the water, it doesn't get too drenched. Kind of relying on that one. But your best chance if you fall overboard, the boat will probably just keep sailing indefinitely until it hits land. But one of the other things that I have, and it's at my feet at the nav station, is a VHF. It's a waterproof one from Standard Horizon. And it's also got GPS in it and all sorts of sexy stuff on the VHF. She's fully charged. Before I set off, I have a little acronym, like let's call it pre-sale checks, and making sure that all the batteries and you have enough water for the passage, food, and all those sorts of things. But there's actually an acronym. I've said it before, but you learn it from, if you do a bit of time learning, how to sail in the proper academies. By the way, there's a lot of really crap academies, but WOBBLE is an acronym that's used, which means water, oil, batteries, bilge, leak, and electricity. So it helps you just go through when you step on a vessel, especially one that's not yours. Highly recommend. So one of my close friends has just done a bit of track time, for example, on a friend's superbike, and he flew out to Tbilisi just to spend a bit of time with his mate on his friend's 4-cylinder R1. Did 2 laps, brakes failed, nearly killed himself. There was no brake pressure as soon as he started cooking the fluid. Boom. So yeah, it's if it was your own bike, then you'd probably put a little bit more care into it. Your kit's going to be in good shape. So yeah, that's what I'd say. So it's a bit that everybody misses. Well-maintained boat. It's critical that all these things. That is the safety. And that's when you start finding that you see who your real friends are. Whenever they help you when the boat's in port, helping you do all of the log jobs and then enjoy the sailing. The sailing is the easy part, to be honest. The hard part is in port. So I haven't got this, the mainsail's not up at the moment. I'm just running with the J1. 17 true at the moment. And it doesn't look like there's anything punchy behind me. I can see the horizon. It's pretty consistent. If this was on my beam on the side of the boat, the wind angle would be absolutely hooning along. Okay, so let's have a look here. So Dominic, so any of the brands you choose for the fit out giving you grief? Yes, thanks. So Dominic, any of the brands you chose for the fit out giving you grief? Yeah, well, the first thing that comes to mind, they're not giving me grief. I can tell you the things that I just don't think are, really up to scratch. Like, one of the things I'm going to do when I get back into port and get a bit of time, it's not critical, but got Quick Calor water heaters from Quick, Q-U-I-C-K, I think, or Q-U-I-K. I had the Webasto one, and that one, I just really didn't like that one at all. It caused me very serious issues. You could call me Sparky after a few of the incidences I've had with the Webasto one. So, yeah, I'm not relaxed about that. So I switched. These ones will Quick anyway, and the guys at sorry, my girlfriend's messaging me, and I can read my WhatsApp messages on my watch. But the outfit, my girlfriend's telling me that I don't understand with it. But anyway, the quick Calor, it's not insulated as well as I would like, so I'm just going to put some lagging. It's quite easy to fix that. It's just irritating that you buy something that should be well lagged, and it's not. So yeah, I know that because every so often it uses quite a bit of energy to bring up to temperature. And that, remember I said to you earlier on, if you want to heat anything, that's when you really rate the batteries. So consequently, that's quite important, because any energy that's spent heating water isn't being used for critical systems such as battery or whatever. My girlfriend's complimenting my looks. Thank you, honey. I straightened my hair before I started this morning. So picking up about 17 to 20 knots true, and we're just running with it. So the apparent wind is right down. We're doing about 6 knots-ish at the moment. Pretty bad performance. This would be bad skippering under normal circumstances. You'd be wanting to get a bit of mainsail up, turn into the wind a wee bit, start hooning along, and then you'd be jiving like this. But I'm just not bothered today, to be honest. So let's bring it back to the nav station. So that's the first thing I think that I would change if I was going to do it all again. Let me just start this. So I'll just get this autopilot working. So there we go. Autopilot's engaged. Yeah, the crew. The dog sheds a lot of hair. So I get a refund on that one? She probably feels the same way about me, but it's kind of a tough question. I did completely change out the brand of the original solar panels and the ones off the back. These are working great now. There's always something. Let's see. There's things that I can highly recommend. I've changed them. I've changed up I think for a normal boat, not one of much power. So like maybe Carry On, there's no question. I would, if I could, I would definitely be using the Profile furling kit. I like that stuff, and like Carver too. But I'm being very candid here and giving you, let's say, people that are at the shipyard, everybody has experience with the stuff, but Carver's pretty good. But I think, the Profile furlers for closing stuff, I found, and I'll be totally candid, that the pressure that we are in Apocalypse, because remember the sails are heavier than full race sails, and the boat's heavier, so the loads are more than a race boat, really. Okay, so I think it's quite a lot of weight, and loads for the furling mechanism. And myself and Bobby, when we had the J3, I think it was, or J2 out, we were a little bit like, oh well, we couldn't get the sail closed. And just put it in perspective, we were in 40 apparent, so that's gale force winds. Trying to close the sail, two of us like holding onto it, trying to get it closed, because the furler just is too much for it. But now I've moved to a different furler in their range, which is just a slightly more traditional flying. Well, it's not even traditional. It's like what you guys would see normally on like the Solent rig, just the normal furling system. But this one's flying. It's a flying version of that, and that gives me more control, that the ratchet mechanism can't slip out. Because remember, that you really are. There isn't anything like I said in the beginning of this live stream. There just isn't anything like Apocalypse out there. So that you're in new territory about as far as the loads and equipment. So I take it easy, and as far as giving them a beat down, there just isn't anybody that's going to work with me. And they just simply said, listen, James, we'll replace the old ones. Because the loads are so high in Apocalypse, we'll replace the old ones. Use this one, and they're pretty cool, and I enjoy that myself. Having dialogue with their design team, and I say, what do you think we could do to do a better job, or what needs to change? And I'm like, I would probably change this or whatever. And also, there's a guy called Benjamin Pavette in ORC who, also is like-minded to myself. We like to find solutions rather than blaming or causing problems with someone. If there's a problem, I want to know the solution, not moan about it and complain that I'm not fit. Do you know what I mean? Or that the kit's not fit. If I'm complaining about something, it's usually because it's unfixable. Or somebody's trying to rip me off, which obviously we all resent. I think in this modern day and age, there's too much of that going on. There's too much of people, cutting corners and trying to get their profit, increasing profit. So let's see. Let's see. Thanks, Andy. So Andy's just saying to me, I miss sailing along in the morning. Really enjoyed watching the relaxed sail while I get ready for work. Thanks, Andy. And then my girlfriend, Jessie, is, what would you tell a young aspiring sailor? Don't work so hard. If you're young, everybody will envy you, because with sailing, it's physical and mentally exhausting. So stress is simply the perception of lack of control. So there are lots of books out there that when the stressful moment happens, you're going to feel more in control. So read, but also get experience and time out on the water. I think getting time and getting used to things. One of the things I think a lot of people don't get is that when you become a sailor or a skipper of your own boat, sailing is the easy part. I've got to be honest. It's the easy part. The hard part, as I've just said earlier on, is in port. So you become an engineer, an electrical and mechanical engineer. And the first thing, like a great engineer that I respect, is Benjamin from ORC. I think he's a sensational engineer. He finds solutions to problems rather than blaming someone else, or you do the best with what you have or can afford, and you find solutions. But spare parts, I'm obsessive about finding what things are going to fail. So engineering is really the most important part of sailing. And then the sailing stuff comes later when you have the time on the water, like sail trim, all that sort of stuff, and getting the vocabulary, and that's just time on board. But I think I could say that, so I'm up to 20 through here. I would say that if I was interviewing somebody for a job, and they said to me that in the hobbies at the bottom of the CV that there were an offshore, I'd nearly be like, let's see where I can find a place for you, because the problem solving under pressure is going to be a good thing. So and working as a team, you'd be wanting to find out a little bit more about what their background there is. So my Vesper is telling me that there's a collision ahead, which is some fishing vessels up ahead. So what correlates well with what I've got up here. What motivated you to sail rather than engine? Well, I don't think you're going to get very far if you have to use engines. Seems a bit silly whenever there's a free source of movement energy that I can navigate with, and they've been doing it for thousands of years. Seems a bit silly just to use an engine only, and it's expensive as well. But you're not going to get very far, and you're not going to get very far if you want to go long distances and you want to do it quickly. ironically, use the wind. All the motor expedition vessels, they don't do much expedition when the engine stops. But with the wind, you know, if my engines fail or I get bad fuel on apocalypse, I can still keep moving towards safety. Yeah, so I think that answers that one. But I wouldn't want to cross an ocean without a set of sails personally. You know, these big motor vessels are very, very heavy, and they put loads of crap in them, and have like granite worktops on a boat. So yeah, that just strikes really silly, in my opinion. What do you think, folks? So I'm on WhatsApp here with my girlfriend, and she's asking me to do a dance. So I can dance like a monkey, and she's trying to make a fool of me and unsettle me, which is thanks for your support. Only joking. So yeah, let's see, any questions, guys? Just fire off the questions, and I'm going to be here navigating. I can leave you out in the cockpit, which is a bit more interesting than looking at my bald head, the back of it as well. But let you navigate outside. But yeah, so we got a lot of this really. So just keeping an eye on the apparent wind, so there's not too much to manage. But this is very, very safe. Well, really, what I'm doing out here is, unless it just suddenly decides it's going to be gale force winds, this should be a pretty safe sail plan. I'm traffic avoidance is what I'm doing here. That's the most of what's going on today. While you have me, and while we have the internet, because I'm offshore. I'm going, as you can see, my trajectory is I'm going offshore. So if you have any questions or anything about stuff, you know, shoot them now. And Jessica, thanks for asking those questions, because they're good for people that want to get into sailing like yourself. And you know, I endeavor to help people. It's like I said, nobody wants to see me in a bikini. It's not really one of those types of channels, and I was rather flattered when one of you folks called it entertainment, which is exactly what I want it to be. I want it to add value and have this as a repository for information, rather than, you know, seeing me and all my bald head, the dog's fur on the channel. That's what it's about. So at the moment, we're more than covering our energy needs with the sunlight. We're making, on top of what we're consuming, we're making about 200 watts under sail. So if I had a wind turbine at its maximum output, wouldn't even meet 200 watts. So that kind of just wind energy is on boats. When you ask anybody, and you actually know anybody that's owned one, it's not really covering the needs, and it's moving parts as well. So stick with solar, price for the money. If you can put solar on, keep it. So I'll put you outside for a bit. You see the navigation. We're going to go on that trajectory for a while. Let you enjoy the ocean. If you're sitting in the office, you get a bit of you see me disappear from offshore. And the dog's under the table underneath you right now. I have to bend down. Yeah, let me show you. She's losing her. There she is. She's losing her. She's losing her winter coat. So it's just a nightmare at the moment. Nightmare for Dad. these life jackets. It's a bit weird watching me get changed, but you want to get a life jacket with crotch straps. You need the crotch straps to keep the life jacket from suffocating you if you're in the water. It's quite important. But yeah, they can be a little bit restrictive, these life jackets, and then carry on. At the beginning, I made the mistake of having the biggest life jacket for offshore work. In sailing and in life in general, it's very easy to sell something on fear. And although, sure, there's a time and a place for a 300 Newton life jacket, but it's going to be tiring and heavy carrying that burden over your shoulders, and it'll ironically make you more tired. The wind's just picking up here. So, keeping with safety, what I'm going to do is, this is my J1 furling line here. So my solid furling line. So I'll just load the winch with this and have that ready to go. Should it be too much for that, I can close that in a hurry. The wind picks up too much. I can see the white crests. I don't know if you can see it on camera here, but I can see the wind definitely picking up. So generally you'll see that at the beginning of a front, you'll see the strongest of the wind usually is when the front arrives, and then it chills out a little bit. So what you can do is you can never really tell. You can get an indication of what that wind is going to be like from experience, seeing what the white caps, and you can see it. But there's been sometimes, particularly in tropical and this time of year in the Med, can be just as dangerous as in tropical weather. When you get the cold and the warm air mixing, it can be nasty. I've seen the worst weather I've ever seen is in the Med, and that includes me being on board in a hurricane in Mexico. So I can get an idea of what's coming at me, and if I had all sail up, I can bear off a little bit to a point. It's kind of a little bit like a gamble, because if I bear off too much, then I've got too much sail area up. In order to get rid of that sail area, I have to turn up into the wind, or it's very tricky to put a reef in a mainsail when you're going downwind. It's easier in this boat because she's so stable and there's a lot of rudder. I could put a reef in the mainsail going downwind, but it's not ideal, and you're putting more pressure on things like the lazy jacks and all that. So on these big, powerful boats, if you were thinking to put in a reef, you definitely should. Whereas the age-old adage, if you were thinking to do it, you should do it on a boat. It's much easier managing sail reductions before the wind suddenly blasts you, and less tiring, being kind to your future self, basically. And those concepts apply in business, in my opinion, and all the things that you do on a boat. It's the same in life. Yeah, shoot out some more questions here. Been streaming for about an hour and a half. Might set up another stream later on. But, looking pretty good out here. But I think it's probably going to maximum true wind speed will probably be about 22, which it is at the moment. Look at that. So this sail plan is good. We've got 17 apparent wind. Yeah. lot of this offshore sailing is just, sorry, I'm eating my yogurt here, but offshore sailing, it's predominantly about energy preservation. So you try not to be up and jumping around too much. If I was going to be doing, 4-day passages, yeah, once you get the ship moving and everybody settled in, just stop jumping up and down and moving around all the time. So I'm probably going to end the live stream pretty soon, and I'll probably come back online a little bit later on. So if you've got any questions or you feel like asking me anything, so I eat my yogurt, the dog has a sleep underneath the table. Any questions for me? Now would be a good time before I finish the live stream. Here too, Jesse. Nice, easy downwind sailing here today. So it's 20, 22 knots, true, gusting a little bit. So pretty stable. So this would be an apocalypse if we turned up and got the apparent wind at 50 degrees, true wind at 90. It'd be doing 20, 21 knots easy. And you can see that if you go to the channel and have a look at some of the other videos. The commissioning apocalypse video, you can see sitting right where I am right now, cooling along. What I would say is that doing those sort of speeds, so obviously the whole point is it's meant to be exhilarating, but it's also you have to use a lot more energy to sail fast, right? Well, you should be, otherwise you're oblivious to the power and the loads and the danger. So maintaining those kind of speeds is generally going to be quite tiring on the crew. Whereas if you drop it back a bit, chill out, drop it back to like, let's say 16, 17 average all day, every day, very, very relaxing. It's the same as a car. Like if you were to let's take a, I don't know, even the Mercedes S-Class, and you go across to the motorbahn, the Autobahn in Germany, and although the car I think they can do, with a 6-liter S-Class, you could sit at 200 miles an hour all day if you want, but you're going to be exhausted by the time you get there. But if you sat at I don't know, it's different for everybody, but if I sat at about 150, 140 miles an hour on the Autobahn, it's not going to be that tiring because the car can handle it. It's very smooth. Sit at 140 for all day. There's a fishing vessel here on my port side. Good. Thanks, Cabez. Good to see you again. Yeah, I was thinking it's quite hard to come up with content, you know, especially if I'm on my own. I did some filming this morning. It's quite hard to come up with good content, you know, that's worth publishing. Because for me, I don't really make much money or anything. It's not that that's a motivating factor really with YouTube, but not for me anyway. But it's quite hard to come up with useful content that's going to be interesting. And what I do on my channel as well is I tend to delete any negative comments, and you'd be surprised at how aggressive some people can be about having an opinion or just their intention to be rude to somebody that they don't even know on the internet. It surprises me, you know. It's strange. There's a lot of politics, unfortunately, as well involved in sailing. I am this is some guy that just wants to sail boats. People stop throwing in politics or disgruntled former employees or you know, competitive shipyards, all that sort of thing. So I don't really care. I just want to sail and help people. You know? And I think you get a lot of. I don't really know why, actually, to be honest, in this whole sailing game. It's a lot of huge egos. I don't really know why. I see the same in the cars and the motorbikes. Like two guys got the same motorbike. It's the motorbike's a limiting factor. That's when it makes sense. But if you're racing ships that are not the same design or weight, I just don't really see. Like, I get the class sailing, I get that, you know, class 40, IMECA 60. That's impressive. That's really interesting. But you know, racing something like this with something that's not the same, not a similar ORC 57, and not measured on weight. You know, I've got this. I live on this full time, right? So seeing how it would be a bit weird for me to race an IMECA 60, for example, or I don't know, or for me to race a Lagoon. It's a bit simple for me. See ya. It's Wisen. Thanks. Yeah, so at some point, I'm probably going to have to hoist the J2 at some point in this passage. But okay at the moment. But yeah, it's gonna pick up out here. So, see you folks. My rope Mac's running out of batteries too, so that's a good time for me to finish up. And thanks for your support. Get out there, folks. Get sailing. And every time I do some of these live streams or whatever, it's like the macro or geopolitical situation seems to be getting worse, not better. Anyway, hope I get a chance to see you all. Sounds rather dramatic, but hope everybody's well, and people seem to forget that there's a human being at the end of the other side of the internet, or you know, news media reporting. You know, it's a lot of lack of empathy and psychopathy going on here. It doesn't leave my politics any particular way, but let's keep politics out of sailing and just sail. You know, unfortunately. Anyway, hopefully there'll be something for our future generations to enjoy, and hopefully YouTube is still going, and my videos can help some younger sailors or people that are interested to do what it is that I do. Anyway, that's it. Hugs, signing off, and take care, folks. Carry on.